Hi, it's Paula from Paula Quilting. Welcome back to my channel. Today another magic number design, but you can use any scraps of 2.5-inch strip. So if you have a jelly roll and you cut your own fabric into 2.5 strips, that will work. But obviously I can use my magic number tray because I have cut my scraps already. So what pieces will I need? I will need some of 2.5 by 2.5 inch squares in kind of plain background fabric, something I'm using white or off-whites, and I will also need the same colors of or kind of white off-white background fabrics, 2.5 by 4.5. And I will need some strips 2.5 by 6.5 for this project. I will also need some longer white or off-white fabrics, longer strips, which we'll be using to construct this block. I had a piece in my scrap box recently from the scrap store with this nice background. It looks plain, but it actually have a little bit of design on it, just slight design. I don't think you'll be able to see it on the camera, but it's not plain white. It's got a little bit of something going on there, so I will be using that for that second part of the project. So the first step is very easy. What you want to do is take your 6.5-inch strips and put 2.5-inch square on one side and 4.5 by 2.5-inch strip on the other side, and just sew them together in those slices. So that's very easy and quick to do, and you can obviously chain piece. You will see later how many of those pieces you need to construct one block, though it's going to be quite flexible because you do not necessarily need to make them into the squares. You can make them in the rectangles as well, so you will see later what I'm talking about. But by all means, just take the pieces and chain piece them in one go, and I will do it now as well, and we'll come back ready for the next step. Okay, so I've got my strips sets sewn together, as you can see, and I also trimmed my background strips to the same length, which is 12.5 inches now. Now, if you don't have a bigger pieces of strips to cut 12.5, just grab two pieces from your magic numbers, 6.5 inch long, and sew them together, or 4.5 pieces and sew them together to give you 12.5 inch length. So if you have lots of scraps in your magic number trays, by all means use those. I will now take let's start with 3 strips because that's how much space I've got here to show you. So I will take 3 strips and I will alternate where my smaller piece is. So I'll just turn this one around. Then I will have a white on this side, white in the middle, white in the middle, and white at the end. I may still add something here later, but like I said, that's only space I've got here to show you. So let's go with that. So I'll just move it a little bit, and I'll actually turn it around this way because I will need lines on my mat to help me out a little bit with this project. So what I want to do is put my white piece, and I'm just kind of aligning here with one of the lines on the mat, and I will overlap it with my other piece by 1 inch. So again, I'm using just my mat here to find where my 1 inch is. It doesn't have to be exact 1 inch. You can be, you can put a little bit more, a little bit less. It's fine. Now I'm using my ruler to help me out with kind of cutting here. I'm just putting my ruler so there is a 1/4 inch coming on this green fabric here, on this strip with the green fabric. And what I want to do is I'll be cutting here with a little bit of curves. I can see here under where my fabric is, the white fabric is, I can all kind of see it through a little bit. So now it's about 3/4 of an inch here coming out, and that's how much I want to trim with the curve. So I'm just gonna start here at the bottom, go to the right. I don't want to pass that 3/4 of the inch, but I can see where my fabric is, so I can then turn around here, and then I will go up. And then, just to make my life a little bit easier when I will be stitching it, at the very top I will try to cut as straight up as possible. Again, not exactly, not, you know, curve to the millimeters, but just slightly straighter. It will help me with kind of starting the sewing. So this is now my scrap, and the bottom one is scrap as well, and I need to now stitch those two pieces together. So let's get into the machine and do it now. So when stitching curves or gentle curves, those are quite gentle, it's easier when the very beginning of the strip is straight air, because then you can just align them as you would align any other fabric, align top, align side, and you're ready to go. We are going to be trimming that block later, so if the top is not exactly aligned, don't worry about it that much. So I'm just going slowly in, and then my curve is starting here, so I would now maneuver those two fabrics so they always kind of align. Be careful not to stretch the fabric, because obviously it's caught, so there's going to be a little bit on the grain there, and we don't want to stretch it. And I'm only focusing really between the needle and the end of the foot, so that fabric kind of aligns in that space. And I'm just going slowly. Sometimes you might need to lift the foot to align the fabric better. Just go slow, do not stress, and you are gonna be fine. I'm stitching with a 1/4 inch allowance and quite a shorter stitch length. It's easier with the curves if that length of the stitch is shorter, so mine is set up to 1.8, and I'm just going slowly, readjusting fabric. I have done quite a lot of tutorials now with the curves, so I will link them in the description below, so you can check them out as well. But it's just slowly stitching here and putting it together. So we are just working here with gentle curves, nothing, you know, super curvy, just gentle waves to make that nice. So I will just take it to the iron and show you the next step. So I'm back to my setup, and I will basically repeat this process. So I'm looking for the line here to align my piece, and then I will overlap with the white fabric by 1 inch and do exactly the same thing, but obviously I don't want to repeat the same kind of shape, so I will go other way, so that shape is kind of organic. But if you have a preference for one way of doing waves, gently curves, by all means you can do that as well. So let's do that now. Again, I'm just putting my ruler just to help myself, and I will now start from the right, that curve. So I'm going towards the ruler, now I'll go away from ruler. Now going back to the ruler, and again that very top I want to just have a little bit more straight, so it's easier for me to start sewing. And that's the scrap, and that little bit of it is scrap as well, so that's next one ready to sew. But if you want to speed up the process a little bit, you can obviously work with pairs here and chain piece that. So let me do that now. I will align those two and align on the mat. Just remember to set them up so that a smaller piece is alternating direction. It will be needed kind of to put those pieces all together later. So 1/4 inch on the overlap, and I will curve here. Now if you're doing in pairs, you may not necessarily know exactly which way the curve, that kind of in between, will go, so kind of you have to take a risk here that it will look good. So you may like to do one at a time or in pairs, just, you know, that may happen that they all will go the same direction, but maybe not, we'll see. So let's do that. And then I will do the third pair here. I'm just gonna cut 2 at a time, and then once they done and stitched and ironed, then I will do that stitching, that curving in between and stitching. Just don't, I don't like in that design to do too many pieces at the time. It's just I'm getting myself confused, that's all. You may find it is easier to do everything in one go, but I'm just gonna take it a little bit slower. So I'll start more towards the ruler here. What helps with this design also is have a good sharp blade. Obviously with any curves it's always good to have a new blade. Okay, and that's the third one. Let me quickly stitch it and then I'll show you how I link it in the in between. Okay, so my pieces are back from the ironing. Let's just put it back. So it was green, then I had pink, I think it was this way, so I had the shorter pieces at the top here, so now I've got the pink piece with the shorter pieces at the bottom, and then again green piece with the shorter piece at the top. So I will again repeat the process here by overlapping by inch, putting my ruler 1/4 inch on top of that pink one and curve again. So I kind of have to now find a good way between those two ways, because those two kind of look very similar. So I may just do a little bit of wave here. To be fair, it really doesn't matter, it's okay anyhow you will do it. So that's the bit to go away, that's the bit to sew together, and in this point I probably just leave that piece until I finish stitching those two to add them in. Now how many pairs to stitch, it will be really up to you, because you can, I think this block works the best if you do it as a rectangle. So I've got 3, I probably add maybe another 2. It's more about how you're feeling about the size of the block to work with, because once I stitch few pieces together I will square it up. So obviously there will be some sticking out here on the top and the bottom, so I will square it up, and then I will square up on the side a little bit as well. The important bit will be to make sure that the background fabric is on the both sides. What happens is when we sew those two together, obviously we don't need to do the wavy bit wide on wide. I will just straight stitch them when the blocks are squared up. I just don't want to have it too much, so maybe I will trim it here to 1/2 inch and trim it here to 1/2 inch. And when I put those two pieces together, you will have that illusion that kind of nothing happened here in between. It's just the curves on the both sides here. So before we carry on with the project, let's just round up where you can find me and how you can support my work. First of all, please subscribe to my channel and watch videos as I'm posting them without skipping the adverts, please. Please comment against the videos, because that helps to push them out to wider audience, and don't forget to share with your quilting friends. Join my network either on Facebook or Instagram. All the links how and where are in the description below. Where you see my posts either on Facebook or Instagram, please like, share and comment on them. If you like to add something extra, I've got now membership available through the YouTube. You can also use a super thanks on YouTube, or buy me a virtual tea, coffee or lunch using a form on my website. You can also support me by subscribing to my newsletter via my website. That will help me to notify you when I publish new videos or blog posts, or maybe there are some items available to purchase on my website. However you decide to support this channel, thank you very much for being here, and I hope you enjoy the content. So I finished sewing my blocks. I have made 4 of them, so I can have a nice kind of show and tell for you on the design board. So now it's time to get them squared up. So I've put them all on one on top of each other just to see whether I had the 2 differences be in the kind of width of that block, but it appears they all more or less came out the same, which is great, because as mentioned, I don't want to leave too much of that white fabric here, because when I sew those 2 pieces together, if that's the way I will go forward, this is what I want to achieve, kind of illusion that it was still one piece with the curves. So let's take one of them and see with my bigger ruler what I can have here. So if I leave at least anything between 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch on this side from kind of from the bump of the color here, so let's leave 3/4, and I'm looking at that bump in here. I've got a half an inch here to size 10.5. I think 10.5 might be a little bit too small, so if I go for the 11 inches, then 11 inches on my ruler is here, then I've got 3/4 here and more or less 3/4 here. So that's what I'm gonna go with. I will go with the width of 11 inches of all of those blocks. Now this way I thought I will make this block rectangular, so you know, whatever I can cut here and then leave as much as I can here. So obviously we started from 12.5. It's not going to be 12.5 after it's stitched, because there will be some rugged edges we need to square up as well. But I could possibly do like about 12 or 11.75. But if I go with the 11 both ways, then now I've got other options how I want to put those blocks. So originally I want to put them this way, so kind of, like I said, have that illusion that it's a one ongoing piece, and that will look great. I will show some pictures in a minute. But then if you square them up to the same size, you can now set them up kind of in variation as well, and I'll put some pictures in a minute as well. So let's square them up, like I said. So we're going with the 11 inches. So here I just want to kind of center more or less where my bigger bumps are from both sides, so I've got the same amount of fabric on both sides. So now I can just put 11 inches here. You could use your mat to cut it as well without kind of turning it around. That will work as well. And then here are just simple squaring up. So again, I can center my colors in the middle of the 11 inch if that's, you know, what you would like to do, or you can kind of go both ways. It's up to you again what you would like to do. They don't have to match anything. They are freehand waves, and they are obviously all about improvisation, so they can look anyhow you feel like on the day. So 11 inch square, so still nice big blocks. And as you can see, so I've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 colors and 6 backgrounds to make this block in kind of when I was stitching it back. You could make it, like I said, rectangle, keep going and then square it up to whatever size you want, but I think 11 inch is nice size of the block to work with. So let's have a look at the design board now. What we can kind of put together with those blocks, either on their own or mix up with some more whites, put them in different directions. There's quite a few options you can go with. And I would like to say big thank you to my group Facebook page members. I've asked the team, I call the you know, my Facebook people a team. So I've asked the team to provide some inspiration for the name, and we had quite a few good options there. I really like the curvy ladies, but I think the most people have said a lava lamp. So that's the name of the block now, lava lamp. It does resemble it, so it's quite fitting. So thank you very much everyone again to provide some options. I am often stuck on the names, and I know I can count on you to provide me with some ideas, so thank you very much again. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and you give this block a go. As you can see, it's quite you know, it may look very complicated, but it isn't, and it's all improvisation and all, you know, the fun with the fabrics. So if you have some backgrounds, it doesn't have to be white. The background obviously can be whatever you've got a lot in your sewing room. It doesn't need to be plain fabric, it can be something else. And if you need to stitch 2 pieces to make a background fabric, that's fine as well. The more seams, the more interesting blocks you will have. Thank you very much for watching me today, and see you next time. Thank you for watching. I hope you will share this tutorial, subscribe if you haven't done so. Happy sewing, and see you next time.